How's it going, guys? Cody, guys, back again, dropping out another video. Right, guys, the time is now 5 to midnight Sunday night. I've decided to get a load of vlogs done because truth is I need to do it. I'm absolutely knackered. Left my phone for a few hours just to chill out and such. But let's do it, man. BBC News website, link in the description below like I always do. Use of force by staff at HMP Lowdham Grange doubles. Well, first off, it's not HMP. It's run by Serco, which is a private contractor. When you always hear me say that, let me explain. Prisons that are run by Her Majesty's Prison Service are HMP. So HMP Manchester, do you know what I mean? HMP Leeds and such, right? Private prisons are run on behalf of the Ministry of Justice by Serco, G4S, Sodexo Justice Services. They're actually private prisons and they are not staffed by HMP, hence why it's not an HMP prison. Anyway, stop splitting hairs. It says here, the use of force by staff at a jail has doubled since 2015, a report has said. It also found paperwork justifying the use of force at HMP Lowdham Grange in Nottinghamshire was poor or missing. Oh, surprise, surprise. However, prison inspectors praised the photo booth for inmates to take pictures with family during visits at the privately run jail. Her Majesty's Prison and Probation Service said Lowdham Grange held a challenging prisoner population and operator Serco was committed to improving. In August, the BBC reported allegations of prison officers attacking inmates after concerned family members came forward. Now, guys, on that note, each year the Ministry of Justice released these safer in custody figures, which show that the prison's not safe at all. Anyway, they collate prisoner to prisoner, suicide, self-harm, and attacks from prisoner to prisoner, and attacks on prison officers from prisoners. What they don't collate, guys, surprisingly, because apparently it doesn't happen, is attacks from prison officers to prisoners. Apparently it doesn't happen. We all know different, of course. Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons visit in August found there had been 314 incidents involving the use of force by staff in the previous 6 months, almost double the 166 detailed in a 2015 report. Inspectors also said supervisory reports, officer statements and reports on prisoner injuries and healthcare in relation to justifying the use of force were missing in some cases. Stinks to high heaven, guys. In others, there was insufficient detail about the incident and the film record did not match the account in the paperwork. Well, that's because they're lying. Self-harm increase. During some planned incidents, prisoners were not given an opportunity to comply before staff entered the cells with personal protective equipment and shields, inspectors said. Not all planned uses of force were recorded. Body-worn cameras were not routinely used during spontaneous incidents. That's because they give the prisoner a kick-in, and by recording the incident, it could come back on them. They could end up finding themselves on the end of charges and potentially in prison. Inspectors also found the number of violent attacks by inmates was high for a Category B training jail, with 64 assaults on staff, 83 on prisoners in the previous 6 months, with 30 involving weapons. The report said levels of violence were high, with some serious incidents resulting in hospitalisation. Although good initiatives were in place supported by a comprehensive strategy, the root causes of the problem were not identified or addressed adequately. Most violence related to the trade of illicit drugs, inspectors said. The report also found the number of reports of self-harm in the prison had increased significantly, and since 2015, 2 prisoners had taken their own lives. Lowdham Grange has introduced a violence hotline in effort to improve safety, which was described as good practice, inspectors concluded. However, Chief Inspector of Prisons Peter Clark said it was too early to see if the approach was working and the levels of violence remained high. The main recommendations made by inspectors were to reduce the number of violent incidents, the use of force and level of self-harm, doing just enough. It is also said that prisoners should be able to see healthcare professionals in a timely manner, quality improvement measures should be implemented, and managers should ensure all departments work together to reduce risk. Mr Clark said our findings at Lowdham Grange were adequate if inconsistent. There had been some progress, but there was still very much the sense that the prison was doing just enough. Mark Hansen, Serco Contract Director, in other words, Governor, at Lowdham Grange said he was pleased that the report highlights a number of areas of progress, good practice and innovation. He continued, however, we know there's much more to do to address all the recommendations in the report, and embedded the improvements that we're still making in recent months, and we're working on these matters as a matter of urgency. See what they do when they go on file straight away. They say, well, they're pleased that report the highlights, because they're focusing on the positive. They're not bothered about the negatives. Like I say, guys, another prison that's getting fat and rich off prisoners suffering, prisoners' family suffering. The reason why violence has increased in the past few years is because we're let me get my words out. We're housing more prisoners with mental health issues. Prisoners have got very complex mental health needs, and the reality is a lot of them shouldn't be in prison. The smoking ban has contributed to record levels of violence within our prisons, which obviously then prisoner-to-prisoner assaults, attacks on prison officers, you know what I mean, it goes on. Where you've got obviously contraband getting into jails as well. Where you've got contraband, you've got debt. Where you've got debt, you've got fear, intimidation, bullying and violence. The reason that paperwork goes missing, guys, reference violent incidents and prisoner officer statements and stuff, is simply because they acted out of order. They've given the lads a kick in, or they've used excessive force. The body cameras that they've got are not turned on, and if they are turned on, they speak to security to wipe them, because they all piss in the same pot. The reason that statements don't actively show what's gone on in a CCTV incident is because the officer's lied on his statement. That's the reality. If your statement doesn't coincide with, that was the word I was looking for, coincide with the CCTV, why is that? CCTV doesn't lie, right? So that would lead me to believe the officer's lied in his statement. Paperwork goes missing, and then you can't be held to account, guys. Or we've misplaced it, was an admin error. And that's the way it goes, guys. The system stinks, man. Another prison. Oh yeah, we've got a photo booth, but everything else is like violence and not seeing healthcare in a timely manner, which is in every prison. Like I say, violence is here, there and everywhere. Prison officers get away with it for the most part. We did see 2 that were jailed that worked at Young Offenders Institute, Wetherby, after they dragged a 17-year-old lad into an un-CCTV'd, uncovered area where there was no camera, and beat the shit out of him. The officers grassed him up. The other officers grassed these 2 up because they used excessive force and stuff, and were actually outraged and put statements in. Them 2 officers ended up being jailed. And yeah, they should be targeted by every prisoner in the system, but because, like I say, they're obviously pro-punishment, anti-prisoners, do you know what I mean? So they're in the system. But like I say, guys, another prison, failing prisoners and prisoners' families, apart from the photo booth, which is a fantastic initiative, and I support that wholeheartedly, but more negatives than positives. On that note, guys, like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.